We all watched Captain America's final scene in Endgame and felt that warm, fuzzy feeling. He finally got his dance. He got the life he was robbed of, a quiet existence with the love of his life, Peggy Carter. On the surface, it's the perfect storybook happy ending. But the more I think about it, the more I realize it's one of the most quietly tragic endings in the entire MCU. It's beautiful, yes, but it's also heartbreaking. Let us break down why Steve Rogers' happily ever after is far more complicated and sorrowful than it appears. First, let's acknowledge what we see on screen. It's a powerful, emotionally satisfying moment. Steve, the soldier who never got to go home, finally hangs up his shield and finds peace. The image of him and Peggy, old and happy, dancing in their living room, is designed to make us feel complete. It closes his character arc in a neat little bow. But the cost of that perfect picture is immense, and it's a cost paid not just by Steve, but by everyone he leaves behind. The core of this tragedy is that Steve Rogers, the man who always faced the future head-on, abandons the present to live in the past. Think about his journey. He's the man out of time, ripped from the 1940s and thrust into the 21st century. His entire arc was about adapting, finding his place, and becoming the moral compass for a new, chaotic era. He learned to navigate a world of smartphones, flying helicarriers, and alien invasions. He built a new family with the Avengers. And then, at the very end, he chooses to walk away from all of it. He doesn't just retire. He erases his entire modern life. It's a retreat, a decision to go back to a world he understood, rather than continuing to fight for the one he was in. He essentially chose nostalgia over reality, comfort over growth. And that brings us to the most painful part of his decision, Bucky. Steve's loyalty to Bucky Barnes was the driving force behind 2 entire movies. He risked everything, tore the Avengers apart, and became a fugitive. All for the man who was his last link to home. "I'm with you till the end of the line," he said. But in the end, he wasn't. He leaves Bucky, a man still grappling with a century of trauma, in a world without his anchor. Their final conversation is so quiet, so full of unspoken understanding. Bucky knows Steve isn't coming back. He's happy for his friend, but he's also being left behind again. After everything they went through, after finally getting Bucky back, Steve leaves him to face the future alone. The man who needed Steve the most now has to navigate his healing journey without his lifelong brother. That end of the line arrived, and Steve stepped off the train. Then there's the shield. The passing of the shield to Sam Wilson is an iconic, heroic moment. It represents a new era, a new Captain America. But think about what that shield truly represents. For Steve, it wasn't just a symbol of hope, it was a burden. It was the weight of the world, the responsibility he carried every single day. When he gives it to Sam, he's not just passing on a title, he's passing on that burden. He gives Sam the symbol, but not the context of what it cost him personally. Sam inherits the expectations, the history, and the pain associated with that shield, all while Steve gets to walk away from it. It's a beautiful moment of trust in Sam, but it's also Steve shedding a responsibility he no longer wants, leaving his friend to carry it in his place. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier series explores this weight, showing us just how heavy that shield really is. We also have to talk about Peggy Carter. We all love the romance, but Steve's choice quietly rewrites her entire life. The Peggy we met in her own TV series and in other MCU appearances was a force of nature. She was a founder of S.H.I.E.L.D., a woman who built an incredible legacy on her own terms after losing Steve. She mourned him, yes, but she moved on and became a hero in her own right. She had a husband, kids, a full life. Steve going back to her potentially erases that. Does she still found S.H.I.E.L.D.? Does her independent legacy remain intact? The romance is beautiful, but it comes at the expense of the fiercely independent character arc we saw her build. Her agency is subtly undermined for the sake of fulfilling Steve's happy ending. The story becomes about him getting the girl, rather than her building her own world. This all points to a larger, more subtle tragedy. Steve trades growth for comfort. His entire journey in the modern world was about messy, painful, but necessary growth. He learned that the world wasn't black and white, that authority couldn't always be trusted, and that sometimes you have to stand your ground, even if it means standing alone. He evolved from a soldier who followed orders to a leader who followed his conscience. By returning to the past, he effectively hits the reset button on that growth. He goes back to a simpler time, a simpler life, and a simpler version of himself. It's an emotionally understandable choice. Who wouldn't want to escape the pain and trauma he endured? But it's also a retreat from the complex man he had become. There's a deep irony in his final act. Throughout Endgame, Steve is the one pushing everyone to move forward. He's running a support group, telling people that even though they lost, they have to find a way to live with it. He tells a grieving Tony Stark that he can just put the suit away and ignore the problem. He's the champion of facing loss and building a future from the ashes. And then, at the end of it all, he does the exact opposite. He doesn't move on, he moves back. He chooses to step out of that difficult journey of healing and instead returns to a life that was taken from him. The man who told everyone else to accept their new reality is the one who refuses to accept his own. Ultimately, Steve's ending isn't just about him. It closes the book on an entire era of the MCU. With Tony gone and Steve choosing to live in the past, the two pillars of the original Avengers are removed. His departure leaves a moral vacuum. He was the team's conscience, the unwavering center in a storm of egos and godlike powers. Without him, the MCU feels a little emptier, a little more adrift. His choice to leave is symbolic of the end of that first foundational chapter. It's the definitive signal that the world has changed, and the heroes we started with are gone. So, when you look at it all together, it's not just a love story, it's a quiet tragedy. The romance is real, and the image of him and Peggy is undeniably beautiful. But the loneliness he leaves in his wake is just as real. The burden he passes to Sam, the friend he leaves behind in Bucky, the legacy he rewrites for Peggy, and the growth he forsakes for himself, all of these elements paint a much sadder picture. The ending is so powerful, not because it's purely happy, but because it's bittersweet. It's a perfect illustration of how even a win can feel like a loss. That's why Steve Rogers' ending hurts more the longer you think about it. It's a fairy tale ending that required abandoning his family, his responsibilities, and the very future he fought so hard to protect. He got his dance, but the music has a sorrowful melody if you listen closely. It's a beautiful, poetic, and deeply tragic conclusion for one of Marvel's greatest heroes. Thanks for watching. What do you think? Was Cap's ending a perfect fairy tale or a hidden tragedy? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more videos. See you next time.